Since many years, very much connected to the African Development Bank. And that is how I was nominated and proposed to be on the board of the African Legal Support Facility. And I guess the reason is that I know the African Legal Support Facility since its birth. And 1 year later, after 2008, I came to join the African Development Bank on the board of directors. And I followed the growth, the development of the African Legal Support Facility since really its birth until today. And at that, myself, I am, as I said, I'm the former executive director of the African Development Bank. I served in this function for 5 years. And after my retirement in the German government, I also served 2 more years in the office of the president of the bank as a senior advisor. Professionally, I am a learned agriculture sociologist. I did my PhD in rural sociology. I was professor in agriculture policy, and 50% I was always an academic, and the other 50% I was in politics. So I started as a senior advisor to the President Kérékou in Benin, where I had the job of being the advisor for rural development. From there, I shifted to the German government as a director for global food security and rural development agriculture policies. Before then, I went to join the board of the bank. And after that, I was director for Central Africa and West Africa of the German government for the economic cooperation with these regions. And after that, I became the principal advisor in the office of the President Adesina. So this is my history. 50% of my career spent in Africa or for Africa. 50% of my career I was academic, the other one in politics. So far for my person. And I consider myself also a Pan-African. That's why I have this engagement for this institution. I did not know, but one day I got a letter and said, Christoph, we have nominated you as a new member of the board. Do you accept? And I said, nothing more cheerfully than that. So I did accept immediately. Yeah, I think if you look a little bit back in the history when the LFS was founded or the idea was created, that was very internationally, globally, a very difficult decade. It was the beginning of the 2000s. We had the financial crisis, we had the global food crisis, we had open discussions about equity in the natural resource markets, and so on and so forth. And at that period, I was also involved in a project that supported 5 African countries and Brazil in the WTO, the World Trade Organization, panel against subsidies of a big nation on the other side of the Atlantic. And I saw how difficult it is already in terms of capacity. So we were, in our delegation, we were 1 Swiss, 1 German, 5 African colleagues from the 5 members and 7 Brazilians. And on the other side, there were 120 lawyers from the US. And still we were able to win the panel discussions. And I think I was so impressed, and I said, even if you don't have the full capacity, if you have the political will to change something, you can do it. And then came the idea with the African Legal Support Facility. At the same 1-2 years before, there was the EITI, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. So there were a lot of movement in this direction. I said, finally we are there, where I personally also wanted the world to be. And LFS was one element in this. So I followed it for many years. And I think the beginning was a little bit slow, because it's always like this with innovative ideas. But nowadays I see it is really a full organization that serves its purpose and expectations. And now we can start dreaming about what comes next. And my idea is, when you look into the 4 main subject areas of the legal support facility, it's extractive industries, it is about energy, it's about infrastructure, PPPs, and sustainable debt management. So I think we have a lot of experience now, and very soon we will come into a stage that our experience will not only be there to defend the rights of African nations and African markets and African resources. There is also, we have so much experience now that at the next step we can start considering also assist in the formulation of regulatory frameworks and legal frameworks for African regions, for instance, the regional economic communities or the African Union, and for instance, start creating and advising the creation of, let us say, African trade regulations, and so on and so forth, so that the monopolies and so on, which are also active in the market and which harvest a lot of money before we even think about distributing the value added, that they are regulated, and then we can also reduce the pressure, but at the same time also gain money from that for further investment. And I think this is something very important, which I see at the horizon of all our activities, and the African Legal Support Facility for me is a very important role, because we have the legal advice, we have the legal knowledge, and other partners, like for instance also the African Development, they have the empirical evidence why we need this legal advice. And I think like this we can get into a better stage of African independence. Yeah, I think for me the creation was very memorable, and I have been going through all the advisory and capacity building projects of the last years. I mean, all of them are memorable, all of them are pertinent and important. So I think what the Legal Support Facility does is memorable as a whole package, and that one is a very good basis with our joint energy to try and reach the next stage, where we also help assisting and advising in the legislative processes.